14 after 9 o'clock. Welcome to the second hour of News and Views right here on Salam Media. And we do hope that our listeners in Polokwane on One Nation FM have joined us this morning and enjoying all of the interviews. Do become a part of the conversation via any one of our social media platforms. Next up, we're going to talk with Dr. Jakkie Cilliers. He's with the Institute for Security Studies. And of course, we're going to be looking at security issues around the upcoming elections. A very good morning to you. Welcome to the program.
Morning, Julie. Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, so the elections are around the corner. Already, we're seeing a lot of shenanigans playing out. I think with MK, making an appearance on the political landscape, perhaps there's going to be a lot of upsets. And of course, there's also going to be, undoubtedly, I hope I'm wrong, but there are issues around security leading up to the elections and on election day itself. As the Institute for Security Studies, how are you guys reading the situation?
Well, Julie, we deal with human security stuff, not really state security, but we do
I was
obviously.
talking human, actually
Yeah,
global, human and state.
yeah, no. I just wanted to, our name,
Okay.
our name is such that people think we train security guards and do this kind of stuff, which we don't do. So I just wanted to make that clear. I listened to the briefing by the NCJPS. That was given on Sunday, I think it was. And Minister of Safety and Security, Bekele, expanded on the preparations. The briefing actually was hosted by the Minister of Defense, Tandi Modise. And from what they presented, the sense is that the state security agencies have done a thorough appreciation of the dangers and the issues around the elections, and that we seem to be well prepared. There will be over 23,000 voting stations. They say they've identified 500 as in crime and violence hotspots, and that's where they will focus their attention. And then they spoke extensively about efforts to make sure that social media is not being abused for incitement. They said they're not at the moment going to deploy the SANDF, but it is on standby, and a variety of other things that they spoke about. And the impression that is that on election day, I think there won't be much of a problem. But I think, and you almost made reference to that in your, Julie, in your introduction, I think in the run up, there may be issues. I mean, at the moment, particularly around MK, and MK have threatened violence. And the leader of the party, Jacob Zuma, has instigated violence previously, as we know, around the July 2021 riots. Also, members of his family have been were involved on social media and so on and so forth. I think the main problem, the main challenge we see is what would happen if, for example, MK has been found to have falsified several thousand names on the lists they submitted, and that they are then disbarred from the elections. I think that kind of scenario, the removal of Jacob Zuma from the electoral list of MK, these, I think, present larger problems in the run-up to elections in the next few weeks than the elections themselves.
Absolutely, my thinking as well. Just using the riots 2 years ago gives us an indication of the power of Jacob Zuma and his followers. And I'm dreading the outcome of the case regarding those forged signatures that you've alluded to, and the fact that he might be struck off the roll, because that could truly cause mayhem.
Mm.
And it seems as if he does have the power to create another riot. And that is actually the murmurings that we're hearing from his followers, that should he get struck off the list, then there is going to be there's going to be a repeat of the riots that we saw previously. The all important question then is let's hope and pray it doesn't come to pass. But if that is a scenario that we sit with here in South Africa, if that is what is going to play out, you alluded to the SANDF. They were absolutely paralyzed in the previous
Yeah,
riots.
yeah.
Are they going to be able to rise to the occasion? Are they going to be well prepared? Is this just going to be another situation of paralysis on their part?
Remember that what previously happened is that the government was reluctant to deploy the SANDF, and then eventually, as the situation escalated, they sort of reluctantly deployed the SANDF, and there were all kinds of infighting between defense and police, and also at an operational level that I don't think will happen this time. I think that if that I would hope, but I think that is true that we've learned some lessons from previously. I think Tandi Modise is in a bit of a different league to the previous Minister of Defence, and I really think that lessons have been learned with regard to the July 2021 riots, where subsequent boards of inquiry, panels of inquiry have really pointed to the absolute dysfunction that we have in the security coordination system, right from the national the committee at cabinet level that deals with it, as well as to NICOC, which is supposed to bring coordinate intelligence and so on. We don't really know what's happening on the intelligence side, and we do know that there are serious problems within the military. Many of us call for the military to be deployed in these kind of situations, but really they are not very well equipped and they are not trained for this kind of duty. Tani Modise is trying to steer the military into that direction. And certainly, if there is a problem, they will be deployed and they will hopefully bring a degree of stability. But this is ultimately the responsibility of political leadership to try and calm the situation. And of course, the problem here is that, well, I would tend to argue that Jacob Zuma really is not a responsible player in this regard. So I'm quite worried about the next few weeks, as you indicated.
He seems to be quite intent on disrupting the upcoming elections if he gets struck off, obviously.
Yeah,
That also leads me to the 500 polling stations that you alluded to earlier on. That has been identified as being the hotspots or the crime spots. Do you think that if those stations, if the Minister of Defence decides to make it public, that you won't get a huge voter turnout at those particular polling stations? And possibly, and I'm kind of worried about that narrative because it might create a bit of panic and fear, in the country, and people might just stay away and not go and cast their votes. That would be
I,
quite disastrous, would it not?
yeah. I don't think they'll make those 500 stations, they'll publicly make that known for exactly the reasons that you've mentioned. They do their analysis and they then deploy the police and eventually, if necessary, the military to where they think the priority hotspots are. Now, we know that the regions that have the highest murder rate in South Africa is the Eastern Cape, KwaZulu-Natal, Western Cape, and Gauteng. So, but there are thousands of voting stations in each of these. So it is a problem. But the impression I must say that I got from the cluster briefing was an impression of a security establishment that was concerned that the elections could be disrupted, and were making plans, practical plans to try and deal with that.
In your mind, what is the word disruption or disrupted mean when you think about the elections and such actions happening as people, queue to cast their votes? Or again, is it really a situation of leading up to the elections and not necessarily on elections day?
I think the latter. I think it's the leading up to the elections. I think on the election day, we will hopefully see quite a sort of show of strength and visibility. There'll be calm. There will be areas that there will be problems. But uh, if there is violence on the on by a particular party, that would mean that party is effectively questioning the legitimacy of the elections themselves, and that is only possible if the events that we spoke about earlier happens. Zuma is taken off the roll, MK is removed. That would create a potentially challenge in that those supporters could then, who are not known for their discipline, could then try and disrupt the elections by calling the elections illegitimate and questioning the IEC and so on. And that is not impossible given the scenarios that we spoke about.
I'm actually half expecting that to happen. I don't want to be a pessimist, but given what's playing out in front of our eyes, you can't help
Yeah,
but
yeah.
expect such scenarios. Any final thoughts from you, Dr. Jakkie Cilliers, before I let you go?
No, Judy, I think as South Africans, we need to count and hold the security agencies accountable. They are mandated to provide us with free and fair elections end of May. I think they'll be able to do that. We are rightly concerned about the problems in the run-up, and let's hope that calm heads will prevail. I think MK is a disruptive party in many senses, and I think that we must also not recognize that the problems are quite localized. They will be in certain parts of KwaZulu Natal, and much smaller in one or two areas in Gauteng. That's where we may see problems. I don't think this is a nationwide challenge.
Well, thank God for that. Dr. Jakkie Cilliers, thank you indeed for your insights. You are, of course, from the Institute for Security Studies. Go well, keep safe. God bless.
Thank you, Julie.
It is exactly 8:26 news and views on Salam Media. Standing by to talk with us next is Omar Sharif. He's an Indian-based political analyst, and he's going to be talking to us about phase two of the elections in India as they head into phase two of its enormous election.